Hey guys, welcome into the Stinkin Truth Podcast. Mark Schlereth alongside my partner, Mike Evans. And right off the bat, Mike, as we get ready for week 3, I love this stuff, right? Games, we're going to break it all down. I am kicking your ass in picks right now. And the Monday night game got me a little bit because I had New Orleans and they let them off the hook, for crying out loud. Giving up points at the end. It was a bad beat, was a push. It was a push. So instead of being 6-0, which we all expected me to be 6-0 on my picks against the spread, I unfortunately am only 5-0-1. But you, on the other hand, Mike, you are 1-5. Should we start over? Do you want to just wash the slate clean, or do you want to just wave the white flag and say, "Oh, I've gotten pummeled. You've beaten me again. I want to give up"? Wait, like, where are you?
It's been a tough start.
It has been.
I feel like the Chargers right now.
Charger gonna Charger. Evans gonna Evans.
Evans.
Yeah.
With his picks. Nope. It's a long season.
Okay.
It's a time to remind.
You're ready to battle back.
It's a time to remind myself and all of you out there who are off to slow starts with your picks.
Yeah.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
So ultimately, what we're saying, if you want to win money, the moneymaker picks right now. You want to win money right now.
One of two strategies.
Yes, one of two strategies. Go against Mike's picks or go with my picks.
Right.
But we'll get to that later on in the show. As we'll pick our it goes back and forth. He picks 1 week first. I pick the next. We can't pick the same team. We can go head to head, and you pick your 3 best. I pick my 3 best, and we live to tell a tale later on after the games are over.
It's a sordid tale right now, but let's get to the games.
Okay.
Dallas and Arizona. Mark, I think it needs to be asked the question, are the Dallas Cowboys the best team in the NFL right now?
Well, I'm telling you, you look at them offensive talent-wise, what they're able to do, dominate lines of scrimmage, run the ball at will. CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, all the players they have right now. But when you look at it, Mike, for me, like I have been huge, right, on the whole Aaron Donald is the best football player in the world campaign. I've been on that for years now, right? I'm not so sure that Micah Parsons hasn't usurped him. This dude, like if he just played middle linebacker, he probably would be the best middle linebacker and lead the league in tackles at linebacker. If he just played edge, I think he'd probably lead the league in sacks, like a premier type sack edge guy. And yet he does it all. He is a dominant factor right now. Last week, he had 2 sacks, 3 tackles for losses. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable what this guy does on a game-in, game-out basis. And I keep telling you, I did a game of his a couple of years ago, and it was one of the smartest football plays I had watched. So the Giants line up, right, and they have their wide receiver on the backside, their X, in a nasty split, which means if this is your offensive tackle right here, your wide receiver is, 5 yards split out away from the offensive tackle. So there's more room on the outside. They motion it back to the outside. So now it's back and wide receiver here. So Micah Parsons jumps out and leaves the box to go cover the back. So that's an automatic tell for an offense. Hey, they're in man-to-man. So what do? They short motion the back down, right? They're going to, pick the corner who's in press on the wide receiver, and he's going to run a rail route or, like the wheel, but it's just a rail down the edge. And so as he goes in motion, you see Michael Parsons yelling at the corner, hey, man, here it comes. Like, back off the ball. Don't get picked, right? And the corner's just like completely locked in. And here comes the back, picks the cornerback. Here goes the wide receivers. Kenny Golladay for the Giants, 6'4", can run like the wind. And Micah Parsons comes off his man coverage, opens his hips, spins, runs down the sideline with him, plays, starts pressing him right. So he's in what they call in phase. He presses him down the sideline. And as Kenny Golladay goes up to try to make a, he's reading his eyes and hands. He goes up, knocks the ball down. It was remarkable for me. I was like, this guy's not only a great middle linebacker,
He's a shutdown corner.
He's a shutdown corner. Yeah. Like he's the best player in football. But I will say this about the Dallas Cowboys. And I don't know if I don't know if I'm ready to give them the number one ranking yet, but they're right there in the conversation. But I will say this. They're playing a scrappy team that I think has a pretty damn good defense. And for all the people that were saying, hey, the Arizona Cardinals are tanking, the Arizona Cardinals are playing their asses off with questionable talent. Like, let's face it, Josh Dobbs, and he played great last week against the Giants, but Josh Dobbs is a journeyman. That's what he is. And, James Conner is a really good player. But, like, they should have won a game against the Giants. The Giants came back, and it's an incredible comeback that the Giants had. But, like, for all those people that were reporting that they're tanking, let me tell you something that's not happening. Those players aren't rolling over. That coaching staff's not rolling over. There's a lot to be proud of right now in Arizona, the way they've played these first 2 weeks.
Last thought on the Cowboys. They're only the fifth team in the Super Bowl era to score 70-plus points and allow 10 or fewer points in the first 2 weeks of the season. They've been dominant. Second game I want to talk about.
Yeah.
We got Kansas City and Chicago. I don't really want to talk about Kansas City. Chiefs are the Chiefs. Chicago.
Okay.
In what was the year that Justin Fields was supposed to have the breakout season, It's only 2 weeks, and all of a sudden is it time to move on from Justin Fields in Chicago?
Yeah.
What's going on?
I think there's a couple of things, and I think you see this, historically with quarterbacks that, like, I always say this about the quarterback position. There are athletes who have been transitioned to play quarterback, and then there are quarterbacks who happen to be athletic. I want the latter of the two. I want a guy that has always been a quarterback that happens to be athletic. I think there's a couple of things that happen to you. One, when things break down, as they do probably 30% of the time in the NFL, right? You're off schedule 30% of the time. The default mechanism of an athlete who's turned quarterback is from the neck down. I'm an athlete. I'm better than you. I always have been. Let me go make a play with my body. And personally, I still don't think, even in this progressive NFL that we have, where it's a lot more college system than it's ever been before, I still don't think that's a long-term solution, a long-term remedy, a long-term like ability to chase a championship. I still think the quarterback position, you have to be able to win from the pocket. Now, the great quarterbacks who happen to be athletic, their default mechanism is from the neck up. They're looking, their eyes don't come down, right? They feel the pressure, but they don't see the pressure. They scramble not to run, they scramble to throw, right? They scramble within the pocket. And I think what you have to do when you have one of these extremely talented athletes that's playing quarterback, and they're still learning that craft of quarterback, you got to give them as many opportunities as you can to run the ball and to do things outside the parameters of being a drop back guy. And you could still work on becoming more, a better drop back type of player, but you have to put them in their comfort zone. It's funny. I'm calling the Giants game last week, and the Giants are getting throttled 20-0. And I say right before the half, they have got to make some called and design runs for Daniel Jones. That's Daniel Jones's comfort zone. Their offense operates better. Their passing game operates better when Daniel Jones becomes a threat on the edge, when it's not just about shutting down Saquon Barkley, when you've got to be able to hold that backside, but like you can't constrict. You hand it off to the right to Saquon Barkley, that safety and that corner and that defensive, that line outside linebacker, that defensive, they can't all press that way because here comes Daniel Jones at the backside, right? And then all of a sudden what it does to open up that play action stuff. And I said right before the half, they've got to get back to this. They've got to get to this because they hadn't been doing it. They open up the second half, they make a long throw. Then all of a sudden, what happens? Daniel Jones, boot keeps naked out the backside. Nobody's there. Boom, touchdown, 20 yards. And then the offense started clicking. The offense started rolling. You got to put Justin Fields in his comfort zone. And that puts him in harm's way more often than you want, I should say. But the bottom line is, I think that's what you have to do.
But at some point, he's got to figure the neck up part. How much more time can you give him to figure it out?
Well, I mean, how much? Like, do you start over? I mean, here's the problem with the theory is, okay, the theory is, all right, well, then we got to get one of those guys. Well, how many of those guys come out? Because in today's NFL, coming out of college, it is Justin Fields. It is, it is, what's the kid's name? Anthony Richardson. Yep. It is CJ Stroud. It is and I'm not saying those guys can't operate from the pocket, but the quarterbacks that are coming out today are so much more spread and so much more move around it's just a different type of quarterback that you're getting. So I think it's all about continuing to develop, but understanding that takes time, and we're going to have to put him in the comfort zone as many times as we can put him in the comfort zone.
The Bengals, one of the surprise teams to start the season 0-2, but you and I were talking before we got into this, that you're advocating for a move that could really put him into a hole, but you think it's necessary.
I don't think Joe Burrow can protect himself. One, we know that they haven't been able to protect him, right? We know that offensive line has struggled. And I watched him limp around last week, and, he's on the sideline with one of those Theraguns, working on his calf. And I am just worried. Here's what I know about your body and being injured. I spent a career being injured. Your body is the greatest compensation machine ever invented, right? So when something is hurt, your body will compensate for that injury by putting more stress on other areas of your body that normally don't absorb that much stress. And what ends up happening inevitably is you injure something else while you're protecting said injury. And because your offensive line has not been fixed and it is struggling, and Joe Burrow can't escape and he can't protect himself, I'm advocating they shut him down. And maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's 3 weeks, maybe it's 4 weeks. And so let's say it's 4 weeks, and let's say you find a way to eke out 2 wins. And so you get done with 6 weeks of the season and you're 2-4. But Joe Burrow is 100% healthy and that calf is no longer an issue. I like my chances.
But you're sounding like somebody who is all thinking about the investment that you've made in Joe Burrow and protecting that investment, whereas historically we've seen a league where quarterbacks, they really take that as a source of pride, going out there every week, even if they're banged up. Those consecutive games started streaks are very important to quarterbacks. Yeah. A lot of them have famously played through a lot of injuries and ailments. Don't you suspect Burrow's going to want to do that too? Doesn't Burrow seem to be made out of that same kind of cloth?
I think Burrow is all balls. I mean, I think he's one of the toughest dudes out there. And watching him just stare in the face of danger, take Rydell to the teeth, I mean, he does not care. He does not protect himself. I mean, he's going to push the ball down the field. He's going to push the ball to his receivers. So I think he does a great job with that stuff, just a great job. But the bottom line to me is, I know when you're hurt and you are that much of an investment, I believe that Joe Burrow will want to play. I believe it's incumbent upon the organization to say what's best for our long-term investment, but it's not just your long-term investment. It's what gives us the best chance to fight for a wild card spot. Because you go out there with Joe Burrow and that he hurts something else, or you further aggravate that injury to now where he's, instead of saying, hey, maybe it's just a 2-week, rehab and rest, maybe all of a sudden it becomes an 8-week. Maybe it becomes a surgery. Maybe I don't know, but I just my guy can't protect himself, and we've got a lot invested in him, and we're not going anywhere without him. I mean, we proved that over the course of decades. So I'm just saying, I'm concerned. And then, you're going to play the Rams with Aaron Donald. Good luck.
Well, speaking of the Rams, we saw what happened to the Rams last year without Matthew Stafford. And you're seeing his return, what it means. if you had San Francisco minus the 8, you're not saying a lot of nice things about Sean McVay right now. But do you want to say some nice things about the Rams? Are they surprising you a little bit in the early going?
They have. I've always been a huge Matthew Stafford guy, right? Matthew Stafford is an incredible quarterback, and now they lost their best wide receiver. He's been injured, but this Puka Nacua kid, I mean, he comes. He's all-time record right now for the most receptions in the first 2 games of a player's career. Had 15 last week. They had 10 the week before. 25 catches, most by any player in their first 2 games. It's incredible what he's like. This kid is a 5th rounder from BYU. Great name, Puka Nacua.
I know what you want to do. Just do it. Just do it.
I don't haven't prepared anything, but off the top of my head, if I was a rapper, I'd start with like a Rupert Holmes tune, like, do you like Puka Nacua? Catching balls for LA. If you're not into drops, you need this, whatever. I don't know. I lost it. But yeah, I like the kid is phenomenal, right? He's phenomenal. And I tell you what, man, the other thing about the Rams, they invested. One of their big issues last year was line of scrimmage play, offensive line play. They invested draft picks there. They invested some folks there. They're playing much better up front. And look what they're doing without Cooper Kupp right now. What's going to happen when they get Cooper Kupp back, who to me is one of the best wide receivers and gives them the opportunity to play in what they call 11.5 personnel in the Rams. So 11 personnel, we know what that is, right? 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 back, 11. When I was playing, we used to call that zebra. Okay, but you're in 11 personnel. Well, teams work on your 11 personnel plays. Well, what they do with Cooper Kupp is they run him at the F, which is the slot receiver, but they play him like a tight end. And so now all of a sudden they're lining up in what would be 12 personnel formations and 12 personnel plays, and they're running 12 personnel plays out of 11 personnel, things you haven't really worked on. So meaning, like, here's a for instance, let's say you're in doubles right. So you have a tight end, a Z receiver, a flanker, the F, which is Cooper, and the X. Now you motion across that F receiver, and he gets behind the hip of the tight end, and now we're running what we call a quad block between the tight end and Cooper Kupp, onside, front side to the safety. And Cooper Kupp is playing the role of a backup tight end who is running a backup tight end kind of run play and getting up to the safety because he's got huge balls. And he is not afraid to do it. As a matter of fact, he relishes it. He loves it. And so it's it's a play that you can't expect out of 3 wides. And yet they run it that way. And he's one of the only receivers in the league that does it, that can do it. And so it gives them an added kind of element of almost surprise or unscripted type of stuff for the defense. So he's an amazing talent. He's an amazing player.
Look, I'm not afraid to be called fear-mongering, over-exaggerating things, making something that is a mountain out of a molehill. But am I right in saying that the Chargers and Vikings are playing an elimination game?
Yeah, they're both.
Week.
Yeah, they're both 0-2.
Yeah,
they're both.
This is an elimination game,
right?
Loser's gone.
Yeah, at Minnesota, elimination game. Remember all those close games Minnesota won, and I thought it was pretty incredible what they did on Thursday night, coming off that bye week. On Thursday night, what they were able to do in Philly, and they ended up losing that game and giving up a bunch of yards rushing, where DeAndre Swift was just amazing in that particular game, but. For Philadelphia. But I tell you what, the Chargers, we say it all the time, we joke around all the time, but the Chargers are going to charge her. Like there's something in their DNA where they're just waiting for something bad to happen. Like that's the Chargers, right? Like, and I always used to say this when I was a player, when you played a team that had questions or historically weren't very good and you were a good team, you would always just kind of say, just wait for them to make that first mistake, and then they're going to piss down their legs, right? Because you could be playing this perfect game. You could be going crazy, scoring points, playing great defense, doing all the things that you're required to do. And then you make the one boneheaded mistake. And you know what you say if you're a Charger? Here we go again. And then it happens. Mentally, you're beat. And a couple of bad things happen to you. You make a couple bad decisions. Next thing you know, done, gone. And that's how I feel about the Chargers. Like the Chargers going to Charger. So this is an elimination game. It's also, I mean, we're getting close to being the Brandon Staley elimination game as well. Because, like, is there anybody on a hotter hot seat than Brandon Staley? I would think not.
So give me a pick. Who gets eliminated this week?
On the road, the Chargers, Minnesota having an extra 3 or 4 days of preparation. I'm going to go Vikings at home winning this game. Chargers done.
Chargers going to charge it.
Yeah.
And, conversely, there's something to the idea, too, of learning how to win. And I think we saw that with Detroit last week. All kinds of hype coming off that win over the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Detroit game sold out for the first time in forever. You've got this game this week. They fell flat. They lose at home to Seattle.
Right.
So now they got to get back into playing like a front runner.
Yeah.
And that's not as easy as it may sound.
No. And then going back to the running back situation, Dave Montgomery for Detroit, he's out with a thigh bruise. They're a talented team, and they're a tough-minded team. Jared Goff threw his first interception in forever. They're a really good team. The other thing that was surprising to me against Seattle is Seattle played 2 backup offensive tackles, and Detroit didn't get a sniff in pass rush. They finally at the end of the game, off a held ball on a scramble by Geno Smith, finally got a sack. But they literally, I don't know, they put a pressure on Geno Smith. I mean, it was incredible. So that part has to be fixed because everybody was complaining about their back end getting torched by the Seattle Seahawks. And they've got Lockett and they've got Metcalf and they got Smith and Jigba. They can play. But the bottom line is if you don't get any I don't care who you are on the back end. If you don't get pressure, you ain't going to cover guys. Not in this league and not those guys. So that's big. And then I will just tell you this real quick. With Atlanta, they're 2-0. Every 2-0 team last year, Mike, 6 teams started 2-0 last year. All 6 made the playoffs. Atlanta's 2-0. The last time Atlanta was 2-0 in 2017, they made the playoffs. And let me tell you what, physical, nasty, and I don't know that I've seen Bijan Robinson's equal. Dude, there are more rewindable moments than I can even tell you. I mean, watching that kid was like, like a varsity kid getting in trouble, and his punishment is he's got to go down and play a JV game. Like, you're talking about NFL athletes, and you made NFL athletes look like JV players. This kid is eye-popping. Like, eye-pop. Mike, he's just flat out phenomenal, man.
Well, if 6 teams started 2-0 and all made the playoffs, then we'll see if 9 can do it this time, because right now Miami, Baltimore, Dallas, Philly, Washington, Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and San Francisco all at 2-0. You ready to make some picks?
Yeah, before we let you go, let's make our picks. The moneymaker pick sure to go wrong. Just to remind people, because I don't know if everybody knows, I'm 5-0-1. I'm 5-0-1. I got screwed on the New Orleans pick last week, so I should be 6-0. No surprise there. Mike, 1-5. No surprise there either. Like, this is exactly how this normally goes. But I pick first.
Go ahead.
And here's my moneymaker picks, sure to go wrong. Okay, 5-0-1. I've got Green Bay -2. They took one on the chin last week, gave up a 12-point lead in the fourth quarter to Atlanta. I like Green Bay to win that at home. I've got Seattle -6. I think Seattle is going to get back on track. I think they're playing much better run defense. Their back end will come together. I like Seattle -6. And then I've got the Rams giving up 2 over Cincinnati.
Is that with the assumption that you think Burrow doesn't play?
I think Burrow, he's either limited or they shut him down, but I don't feel good about where they are right now, and I like what the Rams are doing.
All right, I'm going to bounce back here. Here we go. Cleveland.
Yes.
Devastating to see what happened to Nick Chubb, but I still think at some point Deshaun Watson gets it going. I'll take Cleveland -3 at home against Tennessee. I'll take Detroit in the game you're calling. I'll take the Lions minus the 3.5 against Atlanta. And a big number, but I think Jacksonville bounces back and covers the 10 at home over Houston.
I hate every one of your picks.
I know you do.
And I love all three of mine. Make sure you follow us, click the subscribe button, do all the things that you do. We appreciate you guys so much. You have no idea. For everybody involved in the Stinkin Truth Podcast, we got some big news coming down the pike as well. You're going to be really excited about that. But for everybody involved, for Mike, myself, thank you so much. And we'll be back with you guys next week.